The City of Hampton Fire and Rescue Division is rooted in local history, which is why we are proud to present Hearts and Helmets across Hampton. This summer media project follows 2 interviews of longtime volunteer firefighter chiefs, sharing stories and testaments to changes over time, the character of our service members, and why they do what they do. Please enjoy what's to come.
My name is Larry Gwaltney. I'm the current chief of the With Volunteer Fire Company. Um, September will be 60 years that I've been involved with the company.
My name is Kenneth Taylor, and I joined the volunteers in May of 1971, so 55 years. I'm the president of Hampton Fire Company, and I'm also the deputy chief for the City of Volunteer Services. I would say the biggest change was probably the staffing, because when I came aboard, um, the volunteers were the primary source of fire protection. We had career drivers and officers. So my station had 3 or 4 people working. This one had 2. So they would blow the siren on top of the building. That's before we got pagers, and everybody would go to the scene of the fire and assist with putting out the fire.
Over time, the whole department, of course, has grown. Of course, we have 11 stations now. Um, when I started volunteering, we had 7. We added Station 8, which is NASA, at about the time that I was starting to volunteer as well. So the stations have grown, the number of people have grown, the service delivery has grown, all the equipment has been radically changed over the years. We went from the volunteers being in the response mode all the time. That's changed. The whole response mode has changed. Now the volunteers they do standbys in the station for insurance purposes and liabilities and so forth. They've discouraged people from responding with their private vehicles to the scene of the calls. Anyway, that is where we are. So the volunteers now sign up for duty stations. But when things are going on that they need additional help, it goes out on the pagers. And it goes now on Pulse Point and on other electronic media to notify folks, hey, we need you to come backfill the stations. So while the career folks or even the combination group is out there on one particular emergency call, the volunteers can come in, staff stations, staff medics to respond to other calls that are going on during that emergency call. And that's a different way of doing business. It really is.
And I mean, when I first started, the staffing, you were just hoping somebody showed up to help you. And as the city got bigger and people expect more service and started running more, volunteers just couldn't keep up with it. Because I remember, sometimes in the wintertime, I'd be up 2 or 3 times all night long. They either had to go back to school or either go to work, and it was difficult. So they transitioned to where they got more career, but the volunteers have always been supplemental. So that was a big change. The other thing I think is training. When I came in, it was all on the job training.
If a call came in that evening, you'd get on the truck and ride the truck to the fires with zero training. There were no prerequisites. There was no preliminary classes or sessions to get people oriented towards it. Today, that's what's changed so much is the training and preparation that you get in order to be able to respond. And you can take that training and education, and it can transfer out into your life and your jobs and things of that nature as well. CPR training, you can use CPR anywhere you are. In the EMS training that we have, again, from advanced first aid, American Red Cross first aid, to the EMTA, to the cardiac tech, to the paramedic levels. We do things now out in the field that weren't dreamed of being done years ago, and to be able to help save lives.
So that was a huge, huge change. And about, I don't know what year, 7 or 8 years after I got in, state mandated training, and that's when we all started, doing the state training, career and volunteer. I don't know that the change of equipment's really alleviated the physical requirements. It's not, you're not using equipment. You still got to have a lot of physical ability to do it. So I don't think it's a magic wand that says, all right, we got this new hose, and instead of having to lift 100 pounds, you can use 20 pounds. I don't think that's a factor.
Well, the gear itself has gotten more advanced. It protects us better than it used to. Having dirty gear used to be a symbol, a badge of honor, so to speak. Little did we realize that what we were doing was carrying carcinogens along with us and being exposed to those carcinogens long after the emergency call that we were on.
The number one thing I think that's helped, and in a way it's helped, is the PPE, the turnout clothes. Because when we first started, they didn't even assign them to us. They were all lined up on the side of the truck. And when you got to the fire, you had to get up on the truck and hope you would get something that would fit you. And they were canvas. And the only thing I can say good about them, they kept you dry, but they didn't really protect you from the heat. The good thing about that is you knew pretty soon that you had a problem and you need to get out of the building. And another big thing, when I first started, we did not have self-contained breathing apparatus. We just had a little filter and a mask, which was not really the thing you needed. And I remember that first day came in, they were showing me around the truck, and it was a suitcase in the truck. And I asked them, I said, what is that? And they said, well, that's self-contained breathing apparatus in case we have something bad. Well, we don't use them. So we didn't have any way to go in and be on air. We were either hoping to filter or either just go in there and do it, knock it down and get out. So that was a big deal. And the health and safety wasn't as big a factor as it is now.
So today the standards say we're supposed to rinse and wash our gear before we ever leave the emergency scene. So they'll set up a decontamination area, use a hose, some soap and water, and a brush, and brush off as much of that as they can. In addition, the gear now gets cleaned on a regular basis. We have installed dryers and washers in some of the stations. All the stations don't have it. We're fortunate here at 3, being a new station, they did install that equipment here, so we could wash and dry the gear right here in the station. Prior to that, we were sending it either to Station 10 or Station 9. Those were the only two that had the washers and dryers. So we'd have to bag it up, carry it over, and then they would wash it and call folks to come pick it back up. So it's really convenient to have it here in the station, and that encourages the folks to clean it on a more regular basis as well.
And a lot of the things that we follow now, procedures and all, is as a result nationwide of somebody getting killed or injured, and then they do, add something else as far as requirement. And it's made safety a lot, safety is our number one goal right now. It always has been, but back then we just put the fire out, we didn't think as much about safety. So, well, keep in mind, I was 16 when I joined, and when I joined, members were voted on. They had a box, and they had round like marbles, and then they had square or black balls is what they call them, and they were black. So if you got a black ball for any reason, you wouldn't get in. But when I got in at 16, the Hampton Fire Department and the volunteer companies were 100%, the way I remember it, all white male. They had one female worked in the fire marshal's office as a secretary. Other than that, I don't recall any. And soon after, 71 or 2, or I was joined 71, so probably 72, it started to open up where that, and I don't, like I say, I was 16. All I want to do is go fight fire. So I don't know all the nuts and bolts about what went on, but I do know that's the way it was when I got here. It's changed a lot. And in the career department, it's changed a tremendous amount too. And this day and age, we're open to everybody. We have had some great ladies, and everybody in the world can come in. You meet the requirements, and you can come in. It's open. It's no voting anymore, and we all take cultural diversity classes and mandatory. And so I don't know that it's a factor whatsoever now. I mean, we need people to help us, and the community, we try to make it representative of the community if we can. And I know one time I went to a fire chiefs conference in Denver, and it's been 10 years ago or more. But at that time, Hampton had more female battalion chiefs than any city east of the Mississippi. So they put a lot of effort into it over the years, and it's been a good mix. You know what I mean? You learn from everybody. So well, when I came in, there was nothing.
Right.
And I mean, you go on a bad fire or something, it was just more of a macho deal, and you just live with it. You know what I mean? I went to a fire and we had 6 fatalities, and it's just something you live with. Children. I went on an accident one time, 2 children were in the back of a car and got killed, and another fire there was 3 people dead. So it wasn't nothing that I know of back then. It was just your peers and people you work with, and we're all good, close friends because the volunteers in the career were mostly, a lot of the career guys came from the volunteers. So, but now it's quite a bit. It's a lot of focus on that. We got a team that handles post-traumatic stress. They debrief after these calls. A child, infant dies or something. They'll meet with these people and try to help them on that.
The mental health aspect of it is huge. In fact, the General Assembly this past session passed a bill to direct the Virginia Department of Fire Programs to create a mental health component of training to be offered to all firefighters in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Unfortunately, firefighting and emergency services as a whole, it builds on you, call after call after call, and it builds up and creates issues that we never even dreamed we would have. And we have a high rate of suicides, unfortunately, in fire and rescue today. And the goal is to try to prevent those as much as we can. It's a preventative thing, an awareness situation, so that we can look after it and try to intervene and stop it, prevent it from happening. But the things that you see on a regular basis over and over, you don't think it bothers you at the time it's happening. You sort of compartmentalize it, I guess is the best way I can say it. But it will build up and it will come back to bother you later on in life. Yeah. I guess it's a form of PTSD, I guess, but it is a huge issue in the fire service today.
It's still not a perfect setup. We had, it's in the fire service, there's no real way to pick up when somebody needs help because they're not going to come forward. So, and I don't know how you come up with the answer to that, but we've had a couple suicides that who just hit us cold, that we had no idea that there was any problems with that individual. So it's a lot of effort on it though. Chief Monk is a big advocate of taking care of people like that. And that, whatever Chief Monk likes, we're all behind him and volunteers, and it's not like we're all 6 different organizations. We're all part of the Hampton Fire Division. So, well, when I came in, the 6 volunteer companies were focal points of the community. We'd have 10 or 12 high school age kids in there. All the people, when I first got in, you had to live in your district in order to be a member of the company. That's all changed to where you can live anywhere. You can live in Williamsburg, so the connection to the community is nowhere near like it was when I came in.
Right.
And I'm telling you, fire companies, do you take these 16 or 18-year-old kids that need a pathway or need some way to belong, it's a good place to do it.
I'll use my own experience and then some of the others, because I was exposed to it at an early age. So I saw when my dad would leave home at all hours of the day or the night, whenever, because we lived right down the street from the fire station. He'd hear the call, the siren go off, he'd take off and he'd be gone. We didn't know if it was going to be a short time or a long time. And there was no radio community. We couldn't monitor the radio traffic to see what was going on. So you didn't know. But being a part of it, it is a sense of community. it's a camaraderie that gets built up, because you want to get to know the folks that you're responding with, and you want to have the confidence that if you're in need or you're in trouble, that they can help you, and same for them, that you're there to help them if they have any needs as well. The sense of helping your community is huge. Giving back to your community, and being there when the citizens or your neighbors are in time of need. I mean, we see people in their very worst times, but we see them in their best times as well, when you think of a childbirth or something along those lines. But we also see, unfortunately, the bad side of it as well. So having somebody to come back to the station, sit around and have a cup of coffee, or just to talk it out a little bit, is very, very helpful.
Nowadays, people don't need something to do as bad as we did we didn't have cell phones, and you were just looking for something to be involved in, and the fire companies were the thing to be in. And some of my best friends that I've ever had in my life came through the fire department. And we've had several of them, elderly gentlemen, passed away, but they were like dads to me, so. Well, our volunteer companies work good together, and we actually have a foundation, an educational foundation and recruitment and retention foundation. Um, we still haven't hit the right spot on recruitment and retention, and I don't know what that is. And a lot of fire departments all over the state are having the same problems because we're generic. We've been all look like a career guy. The uniforms are pretty much identical when they're on the truck, and when our goal has always been, whenever somebody calls for service, the crew arrives on the scene, and we always like to make sure that there's no difference in the delivery of service from a career or a volunteer or a mixed crew. We do a lot of mixed crews. So I think that is one of the problems that we have, is the community is not as involved in the fire companies and the fire department as they used to be. Now, the fire department does a lot for the community, but I don't think people take the time to see what, and the volunteers and all were such a huge part of it. Had big conventions they would have it in Hampton every 3 or 4 years, and then go all over the state and have conventions. We had parades, fire prevention parades, and all of that. And so those things have gone away. Yeah. And we're not really too good about, marketing ourselves as far as volunteers.
Recruitment of volunteers is tough today. It's tough because a lot of the volunteers they use the volunteer system as a segue to get into getting a job and being hired somewhere. We see that now. We'll go to a graduation of a volunteer class, and Chief Monk or Chief Topic, one of them will come and say, "Oh, by the way, we just hired that one." And when we think they're coming to the companies to be part of the volunteer system, they end up getting hired by the city. And so that really, it doesn't hurt in the sense that they're still getting good people to serve the communities, but it hurts the volunteer ranks for not being able to build up the ranks. And the ranks need to be built up right now. We need additional people.
Most of the young people we get in now are trying to get their training so they can get a job, go on the career force. We've lost two this last 2 months that went to work. Luckily, they went to work for Hampton, because that's a real loss if they go somewhere else. At this point, I don't know that the average citizen in Hampton knows the volunteers are in Hampton. I just don't think they know it. The big difference when we all joined, when our high school members and all, it was no real training. Now it's about a 6 to 9 month process to get through the training, Tuesday, Thursday, and all day Saturday. That's a huge commitment, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that. You know what I mean? So that's been a problem. Of course. So we're trying to start some other things where they can come into companies and ride as an observer, and then start their training that way. But it's, volunteering, and I mean, the Kiwanis Club, the Rurittans, all of those people have trouble attracting young people. You know what I mean? And I guess it's just a societal thing.
So the recruitment efforts while it's great to get to all the young people because it's for young people, it wouldn't hurt to gear the recruitment process towards folks who already have jobs, who are not out trying to get a job, so to speak. They have it and they want to give back to their communities and offer them a way to do that.
I wish we could get the spirit of volunteerism back in the city, or back in culture, really, because a lot of organizations, not just fire department, are struggling. It's a huge commitment for somebody to come and volunteer. So we're actually even looking in a role where it's support personnel, so they can come in and do things that aren't firefighting related, but still assist with the taking care of the equipment or changing air bottles on the fire scene. And hopefully that will, get them interested to where they can go on and take the rest of the training and become firefighters. And the other thing that I think I'm most proud of, is the volunteers have come through, and a lot of the senior staff and firefighters came through. Like Chief Cantwell, he was a member of my company. Chief Brown, member of my company. Chief Monk was in Northampton. So I think when you don't get the members in, you don't have a farm team developing people, and I think that's important. And and I think that's why we work so well as a combination department, because so much of the leadership and the membership of the career side came through the volunteers. So, I think it's a bright future, but I think we got to do things differently than we're doing. And what that magic equation is, we can't figure it out yet, but we keep trying.
Um, my father was involved with it, and I followed along in his footsteps. He would bring me to the meetings when I was 4 or 5 years old and sit me in the back of the room in a chair and say, "Now you sit here and don't you say a word." And it was a little intimidating because back then they would have 50 or 60 men. It was all men then. There were no women when I started coming around. Um, 50 or 60 men all sitting around holding a business meeting. And sometimes it got a little rambunctious, but nonetheless, I sat back there and did as I was told. I didn't move and I didn't say a word, but I learned a lot too, watching people interact and watching how folks did business. One of the things that struck me, we had a chief at the time, Lee Smith, and you'll hear about him later, I'm sure. And Lee had been chief for a good while, but he was a quiet man. He never said a whole lot. He would let everybody else talk and he would listen and take it all in. And finally, he would sit right next to the pool table with his arm propped up on the pool table there. And he'd go to stand up and he'd be, "Now, gentlemen." And then after he'd listened to everybody else, he would then have something to say to either bring it to a conclusion or move it forward, whatever was going to happen. And I learned from watching him that, that's probably not a bad thing to do when you're in a setting where you have multiple opinions and multiple ideas on something that's going on.
I think it helps the community, and I know it helped. It helped me. It helped me a tremendous amount, because I really didn't have a pathway or a focus I was doing anything. I wasn't in trouble or anything, but it really gave me something that I loved and followed. And I mean, 55 years later, it gave me a purpose. I guess that's the way, a real purpose, and loved helping people. It's been a good place to be. In Hampton, as a volunteer and being a combination, I've had a lot of opportunities. And if you were strong in what they were working on and you had a desire to help. I worked on the apparatus committee for many, many years and went all over the country helping design and looking at equipment. And because I'm a construction guy and I own trucks and I'm in hauling business, and so that was my expertise. Other guys that may be EMT qualified or real active in the medical side, they give them opportunities. So if you want to do something, there's usually something that you can do other than just fight fire or handle EMS calls. And the big shift really from when I came in is the EMS calls are like 60 or 70% now. People call for service much more than they did back then. So, and that takes a lot of people to do that.
Retention is huge. It really is. People get disillusioned. Their home life changes, their jobs change, a lot of things that happen. A young person comes in, um, they're gung ho. They're here. They're here every time there's a call. They're here for it. They're here at every function that we do. And then something called life gets in the way. And I say that, but not from a negative, but they get involved with someone. They date, they get married, and children. Well, now their life is filled up with things of that nature, and that takes away from time that they were giving to the volunteer system at the time. So having that life balance between your volunteering and your work and your family is huge, and try to navigate to balance that out. So we try and help people with that as well. I think a lot of firefighters seem to have type A personalities. They're go-getters. They want to get out. They want to be a part of something. They want to be active. Um, but the personalities are such that they're not doing it for recognition. Rarely will you hear a firefighter brag on himself. They're not trying to draw attention to themselves. They just want to be known for doing a successful job, whatever that might be. So it's a difficult thing for the psyche, if you will, of the people within the organizations. When someone does get recognized, and we have had a number of our folks recognized for life saving, for extra things they do on calls, or heroic event actions they take on fire scenes, or whatever emergency call it might be. And a lot of times they'll downplay their role, even though it was a heroic thing that they may have done. It makes you appreciate what you have, makes you appreciate life in general. We're all only here for a short time, and family means everything. And it can be taken away from us in an instant. We're one heartbeat away from not being on this earth. And if anything, it's helped me to appreciate life in general and appreciate my family.
This has been Hearts and Helmets Across Hampton. Thank you for watching.